We are all aware that the major global firms have decided to sever ties with their counterparts in Russia. We are trying to find out what is the implication as far as India is concerned. Let us see the facts of the case. One, there are several large companies. Let us not get into naming them. That would not be appropriate. These large companies have large operations in Russia, various parts of Russia. These operations could be by way of, say, a branch office. It could be by way of actual manufacturing facilities based in Russia and so on. So the question is, what are the audit implications if certain firms say, we do not want to have any relationship with our affiliates in Russia? First of all, we presume that the principal auditor, that is the main auditor, is based out of India. Let us not get into any other country. It is only India versus Russia. So the principal auditor, what is the principal auditor's responsibility? It is, there are two guidances available. One is with regard to SA 600 that talks about the manner in which the statutory auditor has got to rely on the other auditors. What are the procedures he has got to carry out? What is it that he needs to do? And so on. Then afterwards, there is another important thing, and that is a guidance note issued by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India on consolidated financial statements. Therefore, that guidance note states that if you are consolidating another entity into your main entity, that other entity could be a branch office, it could be a JV, or it could be a subsidiary. The question that arises is, what is the procedure that you need to adopt to consolidate? I will not go into the procedures because those are technical aspects. So you need to ensure that you do your proper planning. You need to ensure that you get all the information necessary for the purpose of your audit. But there are some 2 or 3 very critical things that I will deal with. What are these critical things? The first one is, the consolidating auditor has got to state whether he is consolidating and issuing an audit opinion or as the principal auditor, in which case there is no problem. But suppose if he is relying on a component auditor, that means some other auditor, then the guidance note says that you need to bring out the fact that you relied on another auditor by saying, this is the total value of assets, these are the total value of liabilities, this is the net profit impact of all these entities that we have consolidated on the basis of placing reliance on other auditors. Now, there are just some 2 or 3 possibilities if you rely on other auditors. What are these possibilities? One is, they give you all the information, they prepare the financial statements in accordance either with their own GAAP or with regard to Indian GAAP. If they have prepared it in accordance with their GAAP, then you convert that into Indian accounting standard, Ind AS, and once that conversion is over, you rely on their audit opinion and you consolidate. In that case, all that you need to do is to ask, is it a modified opinion or is it a clean report? If it is a clean report, no problems, you consolidate and you are done with. Let us take the other scenario where the other auditor says that, the other auditor says that there are certain issues on which we are qualifying the report, in which case the principal auditor also has got to inquire what are the issues, and based on materiality, the principal auditor decides whether to qualify the financial statements, modify the financial statements, and so the consolidated audit report, and so on. These are relatively simpler issues. What happens when those operations are not audited at all, as is likely, as is a possibility in this case? Let us examine that. If you are the principal auditor and you have been appointed to perform the audit of that other entity, it becomes your responsibility to inform the management that we will not do this audit. In which case, there will be a serious issue where the auditor says that we will not perform an audit for whatever reasons. The law does not have a scenario where you don't perform an audit because you have an issue. There could be only one circumstance, and that is where there is a war going on, where it is not possible. In that case, the company informs the regulatory authorities that it is not possible to perform an audit, and therefore you decide whether to do the consolidation on the basis of unaudited figures. The question that will arise is, if these unaudited figures are not material, you don't have a problem. So you say that these are unaudited, it is legitimate. Okay, let me make it very clear. It is legitimate to have unaudited statements into your consolidation. But if these unaudited statements, financial statements, are material, if the operations of the subsidiary or the branch office or the operations, the joint operations there, if those operations are material to the consolidation process, then we have a situation where the auditor may decide to issue a disclaimer, or he may decide to, if some information is not available, then he may say that fine, we will qualify the report, or we may issue whatever. But in case information is not available, and if this information is material, the auditor will have no option but to issue a disclaimer. This is the technical part of it, and everybody understands that. But what happens in a situation where the auditor says, I can travel to that place, but I refuse to go to that country because I have a political issue? What happens if an auditor says, for reasons that I am unable to state, and not for reasons of safety, but for other reasons, I do not wish to do that audit? The company in that case would be constrained to take very extreme action. Maybe they may say that let us now go ahead and appoint another firm of auditors. They will have to do the appointment. The appointment will have to follow the process prescribed under the Companies Act for appointment of an auditor, and that auditor will have to carry out the work. Suppose if he is not an auditor appointed under statute, and they say that fine, let us rely on the financial statements of a person who is not a member of the institute, not registered as a member, then in that case, what would happen is that this firm, the principal auditor, will need to rely on the audit carried out by a person who is not qualified to do an audit, or whatever. He is not a member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. In that case, the auditors will need to take further calls to find out if this firm has the competence to perform an audit in accordance with the auditing standards and in accordance with the accounting standards prescribed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. All this will need to be brought out in the consolidated auditor's report, so that there is no ambiguity insofar as the reader is concerned. The only serious issue, as I mentioned, that would arise is when the auditor expresses his inability, or whatever word you can use, to perform an audit, although everything is fine in Russia, and for reasons other than safety, for example. In that case, there would be an extreme situation that would face not only the auditors, but also the company. I would be inclined to believe that the way it will play out is auditors will say that we care for the safety of our people. We fear that something can go wrong with regard to their safety in that country. And that could be a reasonable stand to take without getting into these global associations and whether these guys are doing all this under instruction from somebody. All those issues will get obliterated, in which case the company will need to say, okay, fine, we'll do one thing. We will have a local firm do this audit. That local firm would be a component auditor, and then the principal auditor takes a call to what extent they need to issue guidance, questionnaires to ensure compliance with the accounting and auditing standards prescribed by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. So the final reporting implication, if the auditors are satisfied that the work has been done in accordance with these standards, then there would be a clean opinion. If the auditor comes to the conclusion that the work done is not appropriate, it cannot be relied upon, then there would be a serious issue as far as India Inc. is concerned. Like, for example, if everybody says that we cannot place reliance, we are unable to identify a firm that can be relied upon under these circumstances, and we are consolidating unaudited accounts, the only question, as I mentioned to you, would be materiality, and that would play a significant role with regard to the issuance of a clean report or a disclaimer. That is all that I got to say. Thank you.